I had just graduated. I wanted to go to Spain. That was the first place I ever went in Europe, and I paid for it. You know, things like that. But I worked at Denny's, the 24-hour Denny's.
Hey.
I worked at Circuit City. I worked at GNC.
Speak on it.
I'm like, had no business selling all those stackers to people. They're probably illegal now.
We are live.
From the Hilton Carter Studios.
Hey. I didn't know that I was going to get an intro here myself from our guest. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Hilton's Head with me, Hilton Carter. And today is a special episode. We got a special guest today. Someone who I will say I've admired for a very long time. She's someone who I have had the honor of being friends with over the past, I will say, 9 years. She is the co-owner of a Mexican restaurant here called Clavel, Speakeasy, WC Harlan, a beer garden tavern called Faden Sonnen, a wine shop called Angel's 8 Lemons, a bar called the Coral Wig, and in the process of renovating a hotel in a fishing village on the coast of Asturias,
Spain, northern Spain.
Yeah. Northern Spain, called Charo?
Hotel Charo.
Charo. She's been in multiple publications. She's been in Bon Appetit Magazine, Baltimore Magazine, and Saveur Magazine. Not just in it, they called her the most interesting woman in the restaurant business. That's big. That's big praise right there.
Yeah.
Most interesting. Yeah. Like interesting is a good word to use when it comes to you. These are all things that you have created for yourself here. You are also a wife. Matthew Pierce is your husband.
Yes.
And you are also a mother to baby.
Capital M.
Capital M. I love that. Yeah. A capital M.
Yep.
I have a lot of questions. So I wrote them all down here, and I hope we can get through most of them. But to me, you are, and you can always tell me you're not one of these, but I do see you as an artist, a style maven is what I wrote down, because you always come fashionable, always looking like you got business to do, you know, but like in a very chill way, which I absolutely love. And you are, like I said, someone who has created not just a space here in Baltimore, but now worldwide, right? You're reaching Spain. The one thing that I personally know you as is a connector. First, before I go further, Lane Harlan. Your name, Lane Harlan. Lane, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, I just want to lean. The reason I want to lean into this because first, I just feel so comfortable with you being here because, like I said, we are friends. But those who are listening or maybe watching, who aren't familiar with our connection isn't just a friend introduced us, and then that's how we became friends. What you may not know, but I believe you do know, is you have a deeper role in my journey here in Baltimore, in my relationship with my wife. And I will say the first time I worked up the courage to ask her out on a date, it was to go on a date to Clavel.
Oh, that's lovely.
That was literally the first place we had ever sat across from one another and had any sort of real conversation and had a meal together. And that moment is such a special moment for the both of us. It led to so many different things. Obviously, that first date led to us getting married. We got married in a space that felt kind of like what we were receiving at Clavel. We got married in Tulum. And then when we decided that, we eloped. When we decided to have a party, we actually had Clavel come and cater the party. What you have created here in Baltimore had a personal imprint on my life. You've done so much here. Do you feel like, or do you think about how other relationships, other connections, how they are all being created and nurtured in the spaces that you have built just here in Baltimore?
When I'm working on projects, I think I tend to have tunnel vision. So I'm not necessarily I'm not reflecting on the big picture, but I know that when at the core of what we do, we always wanted to create spaces where people could have conversations and create memories and to gather with. We always wanted to have sort of intergenerational spaces, like grandma can come or you bring your kid in tow, even WC Harlan, yes, has had babies roll in there. Actually, Carlos, my business partner at Clavel, who's also the chef there, they used to live above Clavel when we first started year one. They had Lucas was a little baby.
Wow.
And I remember a New Year's Eve where we were all at WC Harlan and it was probably like 12:30, past midnight.
Of course.
And Lucas was just in a little baby carrier on the farmhouse table in the back.
I love that.
And, I know Americans don't roll like that necessarily, but we're just a whole different sort of people. And in our lives, now that I have a baby, I realize like, you bring your baby with you when you can,
course,
you
always.
can, it's good to have some structure and things like that. But also sometimes like you have to intermingle your kids in your life in ways. And I think it does benefit everybody in the end. But in terms of spaces, people having dates and we've had engagements and of course we've catered weddings and hosted weddings and things like that. I think a lot of magic has been made in all of the spaces and that's certainly, a great outcome.
I love that. For sure. I mean, look, Clavel is turning 9.
Yes, the summer.
The summer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that based off of my I guess
relationship.
My anniversary with my wife, right?
Yeah.
It all is it's right there with it. The restaurant had opened up and I was like, there's this, I tried my best way to sweet talk her into going because I was like, look, there's this new hot spot, this new hot Mexican restaurant. Right. We should go check it out. Yeah. But when you're talking about these sort of spaces, you have created so many here in Baltimore. Were you born here in Baltimore?
No, I was born in the Philippines.
In the Philippines. When did you move to Baltimore?
When I was a little, I think I might have been 2 or something like that. I was a baby.
You were a baby when you moved here.
My father was in the military. He was in the Air Force, and he's from Texas, actually. My mother's from the Philippines.
Got it.
And when he was 18 years old, he just joined the Air Force and got stationed in the Philippines. Okay. Clark Air Base, sort of outside of Manila.
All right.
So my mother's family's from like San Fernando, La Union, and Baguio and those areas.
Okay.
So pretty kind of northern. I mean, Philippines is like 1,000 plus islands.
Of course.
So we're kind of more like northerners. But my dad he was living in the suburbs of Houston, totally just really needed to get out of that town. That small town in Texas. He just really wanted to get out and he just thought joining the Air Force was kind of the only way he could get out. And it turns out that over the years, he was in for about 20 years and the Air Force ended up paying for his multiple master's degrees. And now he's working. He retired in Maryland. That's how we ended up here. But between the Philippines and Maryland, I had lived in, I don't know, over a dozen different places. We pretty much moved, every 2 to 4 years.
The life of a military kid.
Yeah.
I totally get that. So you landed here. You're here in Baltimore. What age were you here?
So I moved to Baltimore in the middle of my 8th grade year. We had moved from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I landed in, my dad was in Waldorf.
Okay.
I can't remember. I think Patrick Air Force Base. No, that was Florida. Sorry. I don't remember the Air Force Base.
Wow, you're all over the place. Yeah.
All over the place. But yeah, so we lived in Waldorf and middle of my 8th grade year, I went to high school in Waldorf and I graduated early. So I was only there for 3 years. And then I moved to Baltimore when I was 17.
You moved to Baltimore when you were 17.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take it back just a bit because I know who you are today. I have a sense of who you are. I know you, but I guess you're here because I want to get to really know you, right? I want to talk to you about the things that you are doing. You were bouncing around from city to city as a young child. the stuff that you create now, these beautiful spaces for people to have these wonderful transformative moments, things they will always remember in their lives. These spaces are very well thought out and intentional in the way you create them. When you were younger, let's say, I'm going to go through the ages, right? When you were 8, when you were 16, when you were 24, what did you want to be? What was your dream job? What did you want to be in those stages of your life?
Oh, I mean, things changed. It just,
of course,
I when I was very young, I feel that I maybe wanted to be some kind of a dancer or, I think a comedian at one point. I loved writing.
Okay.
Yeah, I still love writing.
Writing jokes.
Writing anything. Sometimes it'd be me staying up all night writing jokes, thinking I was a stand-up comedian. I don't think I could ever deliver. I'm not good at public speaking, but I like writing. I thought I would be a writer. I wanted to be on SNL. I wanted to. So I was really into,
I get it.
Stuff like that. And then later I was convinced I would be a good lawyer because I loved arguing.
How old are you at that point?
Oh, I was, probably like 5th grade, 6th grade.
5th grade.
Just arguing with my dad, making him mad all the time.
So almost like the debate team.
Yeah. I liked arguing and I liked...
You liked arguing?
Yeah. So I thought I would be good at this, and I started to join, student government.
For sure.
And I ended up, when I was in high school, I was the Maryland state vice president. I ended up going through, class president and then
for sure
county. And then I was into stuff like that. Of course, now I have a political science degree that I just am doing absolutely nothing with. But,
how many of us are doing something in the degrees that we paid for?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad I didn't go into politics, But I think I always liked organizing things. I liked gatherings. I liked bringing people together.
For sure.
I liked, I'm as you say, I am a connector, and I love to host people. And, when I became old enough to get a job, actually I got a job on using my sister's ID when I was way too young. I think I was 14 when I was working in the mall. But, and I ended up using that many times over the years because I always wanted to work. And I always had multiple jobs, and I just really wanted to be independent, and I wanted to do things for myself. And I remember in high school, I was in student government. I would tell my parents I was going to like a student government convention, but I would really just be like flying somewhere and going to shows. I'd fly to Boston. Like, what? I'm like, how do you? Yeah, totally on my sister's ID.
In high school?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Be like, I'm going to Ocean City for the weekend. I'm going to go do that. And I'd fly to Boston and go to punk shows and
okay.
stuff like that, So
all right,
I definitely.
Now we're on a topic. So you're talking.
Clever.
You were clever. Now you're talking about jobs. You're talking about punk shows.
Yeah.
And you were working at the mall. I'm gonna go ahead and guess where you worked.
Okay. Okay.
Hot topic.
At some point, yes. At some point, yes.
Look, my first job, I was also someone who really loved. I was an entrepreneur at the very moment I came out of my mom. I feel like that was it for me.
You were telling her what to do.
As I was like, look, there's work to be done. How can I make this something? My first job, I would say the first way I made money was probably not the best way to do so, but I had a Game Boy in 4th grade, I believe, and I would basically trade my classmates to play my Game Boy for parts of their lunch. So I would basically get all of these pieces to make a meal for myself for lunch, and I would pocket the money my mother gave me for my school lunch. So I told my mom this, and she was like, that's actually my money. But she understood my hustle there.
Yeah.
Right. So as a young person, I understood the idea that you had to work hard to actually make something of yourself. Now,
and to be independent. That was what it was about for me when I was in high school. I really knew that making money for myself meant I could do things like go to a show or, I could sort of save money. And I remember when I was I had just graduated. I wanted to go to Spain. That was the first place I ever went in Europe, and I paid for it. Things like that. But I worked at Denny's, the 24-hour Denny's.
Hey.
I worked at Circuit City. I worked at GNC.
Speak on
I'm
it.
like had no business selling all those stackers to people. They're probably illegal now. I worked at where did I worked all over Hibachi Grill. I had to wear a kimono to work.
you.
Can you believe it? And I was back there like mixing coffee and sake because there was a hot sake machine next to a coffee machine. So I invented Safi. And I was like, oh, these two together make you like good to work.
Okay.
For, I'd be like 9-hour shift. Let's go. I'm sipping sake and hot coffee together. Safi.
The espresso martini is hot now. You talking about Safi?
I had
Come
this
on
back
now.
in the day in Waldorf at the Hibachi Grill, man.
Look at you.
So running around in my pink kimono with my hot mug, just like, oh, I'll pick the shrimp up off the ground. It's cool. Here we go.
I love it.
Yeah,
that is you know what, you and I more in common than I thought, honestly. Like I could go through the list, all of the I guess the fast food restaurants I worked at, all of the Macy's women's shoe departments.
Oh, that's fancy.
I tried to fancy it up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I gotta get a little fancy there.
That's a good place to be for a young man.
I was in college. I was probably like 19 at this point. Again, I think those are the things that say a lot about you as an individual. That sort of work ethic, and having that shows for who you are. Us on the outside looking in, we're just like, this person is doing it. So many things that are that we as people who live here in Baltimore, Maryland, honestly, anyone who has the ability to visit Baltimore, get the opportunity to sit in one of the spaces that you have. You, your partners, Matthew, whether it's Carlos, anyone who's working with you, have created for all of us to experience. You have all of these different ideas, whether it's a Mexican restaurant, whether it's a beer garden, whether it's, I would say just a beautiful wine shop. There is a aesthetic that goes into it. You have these thoughts and ideas. How do you go about creating the space? Do you think about the experience that the individuals will have when they're there first, and then start to pull pieces together to, I guess, almost design it out? Or you just have a sense of, I've been to a space like this. This is the thing I want to create here.
It's usually already there, like a fire. Like my husband and I both design the spaces together. A lot of people don't know he's very behind the scenes. He's a musician. He's an artist. He's like, don't put my name on anything. I'm back here cleaning the drain, and I just want to play music. I call
Matthew like quiet but deadly. Like he's not saying much, but he's doing it. Oh,
he's
in it.
He's extremely intelligent and has very good taste.
Of course.
But yeah, he's a very humble person, and many of the reasons why I love him so much.
I get it.
But we travel. We like to go and get as far away as we can, and because it brings so much perspective when we come home.
For sure.
And I think that we're both really attracted to good ambiance and spaces that feel homey, and we sort of look at a lot of the spaces we build, a lot ourselves. We do a lot of the construction ourselves and problem solving ourselves. We don't use big contractors or anything like that. So a lot of times things are added to over time. Like it's really a constant evolution with every business. As you see, like Clavel from year one to how it is now, we've sort of expanded and made things a little nicer over time. But bar stools in Clavel were literally 2x4s from Home Depot, and they're still the same ones. My dad sketched them out on paper, and then we said, "Hey, Matthew, can you build these?" Yes. So assembly line style built them. They're still the same bar stools today.
But that's a part of the aesthetic, in a sense.
It's very DIY
for sure.
And we sort of contribute to how the spaces feel over time. Designing them a lot on the spot, but the vision and the feeling is usually there, and that's what creates. That's the impetus for us saying, okay, we're going to find the space and we're going to do it. It's like, it's like a fire inside that's you already feel it. You know it. You say, Baltimore needs this. We want people to experience this. We want to bring it home. And then that's when we're like, okay, where's the space? And then of course the space tells you sort of what it wants to be, right? Like, so with Coral Wig, space was so tiny, so it's the smallest space we've ever designed, and the hotel was just sort of like, we had this little space, you can use it if you want. It was so challenging because it's tiny, but in a way it was like, oh, we're going to make this a jewel box. Like it was an opportunity that we did, wood paneled all the walls and the ceiling and made it just very like, every little detail just really considered because we had an opportunity with a very small space. So, sometimes, and Clavel, of course, we knocked the drop ceiling out and it had high ceilings. And, we were like, this feels like a courtyard in Mexico. Let's lean into that. Let's lean into all those family gatherings we've had in courtyards, passing around big bowls of ceviche with the Christmas lights up there. And, like the spaces tell you something. And then the general public adds another layer, right? So like when we opened Clavel, we had these, the same with WC, we had some antique furniture and certain things that it's like, you're looking at the rattan, like, are you going to survive the first month? Oh, you are not going to survive. So you sort of have to, in some ways, the public comes in and you say, oh, no one knows where the bathroom is. Oh, we got to do this. Or the general public kind of tells you as well. Yeah, and then I go in and the staff, like I'm notorious for this. I go in, I start spacing bar stools and looking at things and I'm like, why do we see the plug there? Why have I never noticed this before? And so I'm constantly, and they're all just like, eye roll. Like, it's this Lane, this has been here for 5 years. I'm like, well, that plug, I don't like looking at it. So we sort of, we edit as we go and we sort of make, as we can, we can put money back into the businesses and make things better. And also for the staff, making things really ergonomic for them. And we've gotten really good at this over the years, knowing it. And I think a lot of it comes from having being a bartender and a server and a busser and having worked all those roles in a restaurant. We start to sort of like make things more ergonomic for them. Like, instead of running around to get this, let's make this organized so you can just pivot, grab it, and then you can continue on your merry way. So there's a lot of things to consider in the design.
Of course. I mean, I love the intentionality of all of the things that I see whenever I go into a space that you guys have created. It just feels so well thought out. You walk in and you feel inspired. And that's what I think is always important when it comes to creating any sort of space, whether it's your home, whether it's your business. You are making not only the guests feel at home and at ease and welcome, but you're also making the employees that you have there understand what you want from them and how you want them to interact with the guests that come into your spaces. Yeah. I named so many businesses that you, Matthew, have going on. All of these little things that pull so much of your time away from just your I guess your ability to just be with Matthew, to be with your husband. But then there was a moment when the two of you decided that you wanted to be parents.
Yeah, it came very late for us. Yeah, we were.
What made you want to be a mother?
In the pandemic, okay, so I'll back up. Basically, Matthew and I, it was not in the cards for us. We just didn't plan to have a kid. We thought, when we met, we are going to open businesses together. We are going to travel as much as we can and be aunties and uncles. We just thought it wasn't, and Matthew's a little older than me, 13 years older. Okay. And we were so busy creating spaces and running them that it just didn't seem, and my sister has 4 wonderful kids, like 4 girls. And I was like super aunt. And I just felt very fulfilled in that.
For sure.
As you do when the kids get picked up the next day, after being at your house for the weekend, destroying your house. But no, Matthew and I bought our first house in 2018, the year we opened Faden Sonnen. And we had always lived in really small, very, very small apartments. And I think that moving into a row home felt too big. Okay. And it felt, of course, when things shut down in the pandemic, very empty. Yeah. And I just started to have these you're in your 30s, these achy, it doesn't happen to everybody. But it happened for me, and this biological aching for a baby, have a baby. And mostly I could have gotten past that by just booking a trip somewhere and been I can't go to Japan with a baby. I mean, you can, but holy smokes, that's a long airplane ride. But Matthew, I felt would be such a good dad. Yeah, I just felt this is such a waste for him not to be a dad. Did you have to persuade him to that? Where you were like, hey, you will be? It didn't take much. I think in the pandemic, we both, we sort of, we stepped out of work a bit. We had been in such a grind. For sure. for so long, and not just in running the businesses and continually pretty much every 2 years creating new ones. It was like socially we were also in a grind. We were hosting a lot of gatherings, and I'm, my mother, I'm like very social. I get it from my mom.
Shout out to your mom.
And it's just this thing where like the calendar gets full and you're just in this thing. We hadn't really stepped out, and then the pandemic, everything slowed down. And then I started to look into the future, the big picture, imagining myself at 50, imagining myself at 60 in what I felt like was a very big house.
Of course. And
it being empty, kind of, I felt that. And I did feel like we were at a point in life where we would be able to focus on having a kid and do a good job. And I felt like comfortable in that space.
It was the time.
Yeah.
I love that. And you had this precious baby girl named Brune.
Brune Charo.
Brune Charo.
Yeah, Brune Charo.
I love that name. Look, you're speaking to someone who also has, who started just a little bit earlier than you did as far as having a kid, but who's also, who had a child when they were much older in life. There was always this sense of, I have business to attend to first. And when it's the right time, I will have a child. And Fiona and I had that same moment during the pandemic where it was like, this might be the opportunity to do so. I will say I hadn't thought about how having a child would shift my balance when it comes to work, when it comes to the love and care that I want to provide my wife. And now having to put a lot of energy, love, effort into this new little person. My question to you is, how have you and Matthew, but mainly you, as a mother, as an entrepreneur, and the reason why I wanted to have you here is because I can speak from the father side of it. There's a lot that I contribute to my family. But when I watch Fiona and the stuff that she has to do, there's a lot of prepartum, postpartum, all the things that you have to work to pull yourself back up to say, look, I'm now a parent, I'm now a mother, but I also am this thing that I have created for myself before my child has come along. And for me, I can easily slide into whatever work pants, dad pants quickly. And I watch my wife and I'm just amazed at how she can do that with so much of our child. When Harlan was first born, she only wanted Fiona. And Fiona had to do both and find that balance. How have you found the balance? What have you found yourself either letting go of or being comfortable saying, we're not going to do this as much now because we have this little individual? What was the thing that made you jump into it? What was the thing that made you go, you know what? This is how we're going to balance this all out.
It's a work in progress. I mean, there's no doubt that having a child is completely transformative.
For sure.
And I had this idea that you would have your time postpartum to heal, and whether it be 3 months or 6 months, and then all of a sudden you'd snap right back. And the truth is that when you have a child, you are transformed in a way that and I'm not even talking about vanity things. I'm not talking about, it's not all physical. Like actually, like even things like your immune system are transformed, and you don't just get them back in time. You have to work at them.
For sure.
These are a lot of things that, people don't really talk about, but I don't think there's any going back to before, because like, I feel like in having Brune, I gave something away. And I'm changed. Okay. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's also brutal.
For sure.
Because you want to just say like, oh, I'm just going to be that same person as I was before, but you can't be.
Yeah, you think that's going to be the case.
You can't be, And so you have to sort of, I think, lean into the transformation and build yourself back up. And that has been a journey. And I think you sort of are just different. Your relationship is different, and you have to do work. Yeah. You have to suddenly because your time, having a child, especially a young child, they are absolutely the center of your universe. I have a feeling it's never going to change, but in terms of the work, of course, like, some people have babies and they don't sleep well, or they have sensitive stomachs, and you have all these like things where suddenly you are a working person and you needed 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep or however many, and you aren't getting it. Well, of course, like that's going to affect your social life, your work life. And of course, with Brune, like going into daycare for the first time when she turned 1, oh my goodness, the sickness that just rocks them, these poor babies. And then of course it happens to you too, because you're around a kid that's with a bunch of other snotty nosed kids, and your immune system's just getting hit. So I was sick so many times last year, and I actually throughout this winter, and it was incredible. I had never been so sick so continuously, and sort of trying to be a mother and run these businesses and a leader and keep up with your family and your hosting and all. It's really hard. You sort of have to prioritize your time in such a way that your social life can kind of go down the drain for a while. And I absolutely, this past season, from basically September to now, have felt at times like a bit isolated and a bit socially irrelevant. Like, I don't know if anyone's experienced this at all. Well, I mean, it has to be a thing, but when you say, oh, I'm not going to the birthday party, or I'm not hosting the thing, or, I didn't realize how much before Brune I perpetuated in hosting and throwing parties and throwing gatherings and cooking and all these things. And then suddenly it's like, when I stopped doing the invites, I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, like I'm tired a lot, so I don't feel like I want to, I would just go to my bar or go to someone else's bar and I'd be there for a few hours. But if you have to wake up at 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning, then you're not going to drink that much. So, and of course these things change over time. The kids start sleeping better, et cetera, et cetera. But there are feelings of isolation that happen. There are feelings of social irrelevance. And you just sort of have to like understand that as quickly as they go away, those things can come back to you, right? Yeah. So like as soon as I have the feeling refreshed enough to say, oh, I'm gonna schedule a thing, I'm gonna throw a party, I'm gonna cook for everybody, these things. Okay, well then your social life is back, So that goes away quickly, but it can come back quickly as well.
For sure.
So I'd say for anybody feeling like stressed or hopeless about it, just know that your friends, your good friends are going to be your good friends. Yeah. Your powers and your things that make you special or inspiring to other people, they're there. Yeah. They'll come back just like that because that's who you are. So don't like stress too much about. And it's a beautiful thing to prioritize your children. It's a beautiful thing 100%. To, especially in times where they are sick or they are really young and they need you a lot more in these things. And so, I don't feel too stressed about it in the end. I just know that it's something that, is different than it was before.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's, for me, it's been, I was very emotional. Still kind of get that way, but it's very emotional when I had to go on to, out for my first book tour and leave Holland right after she was born. And you never understand or never think about what that connection, that feeling you're going to have when you have this little person to care for. We send Holland to daycare. So she goes to school and then she comes home, and there's these small windows during the week or the weekday, I guess, when we are just all on top of her. And the main portion of those days we're working. I will say this, I think you brought this up earlier, is that Fiona and I told ourselves, we promised ourselves, while we are going to have a child, we're not going to let them dictate how we continue to love each other and what we loved about our relationship, which I think you said was to travel, to see the world, to taste new things, feel new things. So we've tried in so many different ways to make sure that she's a part of that, bring her along. Do you see Brune as someone who has become a part of your ride in building businesses and creating spaces? Or have you kind of made that a bit separate in some sort of ways. Like I'm unable to include her in work for me in most situations, and Fiona definitely can't. But have you guys had the opportunity to say, hey, we're just gonna carry her on our backs, and we're just gonna keep doing our thing and have her become a part of what we're building?
Not at this point. No, I mean, she's in daycare as well right now, so that's like a Monday through Friday thing. And you know, I now have my schedule as a daytime schedule.
Love it.
So, and I try not, I do work on the weekends often, but I try to, you know, I'm very strategic about it. I know when nap time is, and I get a whole, hopefully 2 hours where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to WC. I'm gonna do, but you know, it's a thing where I'm not having to take her around, you know, to all my meetings and things like that. Yeah. Sure, you know, if there was a sick day or something, I could, but also because I'm my own boss, I can also take a day, you know, so I sort of, I chose this line of work knowing like I wanted that flexibility.
For sure.
So not really in that way, but I will say that Matthew has a music studio at home, and Brune is she's on the drums a lot with us. She's exposed. We're always playing music. She has access to every type of instrument you can imagine.
Okay.
And so in my husband's line of work, I think that she's very involved and exposed in that. And so, yeah, that's really nice.
Do we see a future for Brune as a drummer, or where are we leaning?
We'll see. I don't know. So far, the dancing skills are concerning for me. So she likes Taylor Swift a lot. Like, no offense, it's fine. But, you know, I'm kind of like, I expose her to so many types of music, and I'm like, you're only going to dance to Taylor Swift?
She's a Tay-Tay fan.
I mean,
hey, come on.
You know, if Taylor's listening, you know, heard you're in town soon. We've got a great restaurant for you. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what?
Be long gone by the time this airs.
You know what? Well, you know what? And I'm sure when this airs,
she'll be your server.
By the time we put this out there, we will know that if she's going to touch down into any space in Baltimore, she would have heard about one of the spaces you and Matthew have created. I mean, that is just known, right? Let's not even try to hide it. It's well known that I mean, for me and anyone in my circle, I mean, people that I know from other cities will say if they've ever come to Baltimore, they have touched down in one of your spots, right? I love that you've found ways to find your balance as a mom, as a boss. Have you picked up any sort of tips, things that are like quick ways to, I guess, if you were telling a individual who was thinking about becoming a parent, and you're like, hey, it's not all sweet stories.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. There are going to be some moments where you're like, at least for me, I can't speak for you. Yeah. There are moments where I was like, was this the right time to do this? And then I think it would never be the right time then.
Oh no, you just, you know.
You just have to do it, right? If you want to be a parent.
You're completely changing your life. And,
for sure.
You know, you have an idea, but you don't know until it hits. And then suddenly, I think for a lot of people, understanding relationship dynamics, because, you know, a lot of resentment can be created if someone is pulling more weight than the other. And, you know, inevitably at some point someone will be pulling more weight, or maybe often somebody is.
For sure.
And I think that getting into a routine, just like you would with household chores, like pre-baby, you know, like you get to a sweet spot where you're like, oh, I like doing laundry more, so I'm going to be the laundry person. Or I like taking the trash more, and I don't like it, but you don't like smelling the trash, so I'm going to be the trash person.
For sure.
You know, that sort of falls into place pre-baby. And I think that's like sort of a low, you know, having a baby, it's on steroids, all the tasks suddenly, because you're like, it doesn't just magically, the diaper station doesn't magically restock itself. These things got to get ordered by somebody. This baby has to be fed. You've got to, you know, the shifts, a lot of people have a baby that doesn't sleep well, you know, at night. And you suddenly you have a mother who, if she's pumping or feeding, isn't sleeping either. And, you know, you have these shifts, and then the shifts change over time. But I think not saying like, oh, I did this, so now you have to do that. More just like everybody trying to do as much as they can without keeping tabs on each other. For sure. You know, like I will do as much as like if I have a free moment, I'm going to do your task because I noticed it and I'm going to do it. If everyone has that mindset of contributing when they can the most, you're going to be okay, you know?
And I will say, again, like you have to do those things, but you also have to communicate. Communication is always going to be key. You have to say, look, you have to express that to your partner. Like, look, I don't like to take the trash out, or I don't want to do this job. And I feel like if you could handle that part of it, then we'll be better off in that sort of sense. I love that you and Matthew created this family for yourselves. I've been able to witness it up close and personal. You're such a beautiful family, but I know you guys also have the business side to it, right? You have to do that business. What do you do to, obviously you have to be a wife, you have to be a mother, you have to be a boss. How do you go about finding your, I guess they call it me time? What do you do there, and when does that happen for you?
Me time is something, it's saying no, pretty much, right? It's saying no to other things. Like for me, you know, on a Friday night, Matthew, maybe he's going out or has plans. I have some friends that say, do you want to do this? It's me being like, no, I can't. Let's schedule something in 2 weeks or something like that. It's just sort of putting having control over my schedule.
For sure.
Because when you only have so many hours in a week to do certain things, you have to be really choosy about your time. So, but it also makes it so that when I do spend time with people, I'm really there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm very like specific about my schedule. So a lot of times I'm in bed at 8, sometimes 7:30. As soon as Brune goes down, sometimes I'm like, I just want to make a bowl of rice with some butter and some hot sauce. I'm going to eat that bowl and I'm going to go lay in bed. And a lot of times I'm not even watching things. And I have a book on my bedside. I'm not reading it. I'm chilling. Like I just like to chill.
For sure.
You know, sometimes I'm just in my head, or, you know, I'll get on my phone a little, or I love Google Docs. You know, this is my Capricorn energy coming out. But sometimes I just get on my Google Docs and write ideas down and organize the ideas. And then, you know, I don't know. I need my alone time. I need my recharge. And so, I think it's just controlling your schedule, not saying yes to too many things and spacing things out really well.
Great. I mean, that has been everything for me. And I try to find a balance. For me is understanding, like you said earlier, understanding Holland's nap times and when I need to allocate time for her. Yeah. So if she's awake and I know that she can see me, let me be present in that moment with her. So that if that means I need to wake up a few hours earlier than I would that day to do something that has nothing to do with her, right, at that moment. Yeah. So if it's a Saturday and I'm like, I need to take some time today to do some work, I'm going to put that on me. And I'm going to wake up early that morning, handle that work until she wakes up. And then we're going to spend that time. And we might bump into you guys at the park.
At the park,
right?
Yep.
Which
usually
we have
pre-nap time or post. Because, getting them out of the house is a whole thing. You must get them out of the house. You must get them in the fresh air, climbing and running. And yes, it's very important.
You got to do some of those things.
Yeah, you got to regulate that mood.
Which I will also say, I'm very thankful for daycare because they force them to do those things too.
Agreed.
The one question I would ask you is that I've seen how Harlan has changed who I am as a person, as a caregiver, as a husband. I do also think about her when it comes to how, I think about this a lot. I think about how she'll see me as her father and the things that I'm showing her. Are there things that you think about when Brune is watching you? Sometimes I'm being very, because they watch.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything you're doing.
Isn't it shocking when you catch eyes sometimes and you're like, looking into my soul?
Yeah, stop.
I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa. And they don't lock eyes often. You know, they're just looking all around. But sometimes when you lock the eyes, you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
I just time traveled. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I will say, and it's different now. Holland's almost 2.5. The stuff I felt when she was like days old, that feeling of like, what is this? Like, this is life. Like, you're holding this precious thing. And I think about those days. And for me, it's just like, I want to be this thing to this individual. I want to be someone she can be inspired by, she can look up to. and who is going to help guide her for her future when she's an artist or a creative, right? She can be whatever she wants to be. I always think when I look at Harlan, I'm like, she's going to be a creative. She does all these fun, interesting, cool things, singing, drawing, whatever it is. I'm like, she's going to be creative. I'm sorry, Fiona, she's not going to be a doctor. But I think about that, and it weighs on me a lot. Do you ever think about how Brune, and I'm sure you do, but can you explain to us, the listeners, people who are watching, how you go about finding or seeing your compass and how that will translate to who maybe she will be when she's older?
You know, I tend to try to not, I try to follow her lead as much as I can in terms of what she's interested in. You know, she's younger. She's like a year and some change. So she's, I try to just sort of like follow into where her laughter's coming from, and like, you know, these things. So at this point, I'm like funny mama to her in way, you know, like, you know, Matthew will do the mornings with her. He takes her to daycare. He does the morning breakfast and all that stuff. I do the evening routine. I get her at the end of my day, and then we do the, you know, play and bath and bedtime. So I'm sort of like, I end up reading most of the books with her, and I'm the narrator, which I really enjoy so much. And I just think, you know, when I narrate the Nutcracker and with music and funny voices for everybody and scary things, and, you know, she is just this like bundle of joy and laughter, and the most close, you know, we are of the whole day is like when she's in my lap and I'm narrating the Nutcracker. So I think, you know, I'm just happy to make her laugh and cuddle with her so much, like a ridiculous amount, you know, and just kiss her so much. And she loves to be upside down, and I'll just hold her upside down and kiss her some more and try to look at her teeth. What's coming in? One side's looking red. Okay. Are we going to lose sleep next week? We are. Great. You know, I just like to look at her and make her laugh. And so that's where we are right now. I don't really see, you know, their personalities are there. I don't know how much I project versus like, you know, what she's liking, but she's very much like in our world. And it's a very creative world. And so, you know, sometimes I have these questions about school. I'm thinking like, okay, we're pretty, you know, artsy in our house. I'm like, does she need to go to a really academic school so she can see the other side? You know, like these things I like wonder, but you know, in the end, I'm like,
you'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, we'll just go to the school that's the closest. You know what I mean? Like, we'll figure it, whatever.
Of course.
You know.
Oh, I am a huge fan of everything that you, the people that you have surrounded yourself with, what you all have created. Again, like I said, it has had such a huge effect on my life. Those around me, so many people that, I mean, we're somewhat in the same circles, and everyone is just, if we're not eating at home, we're having conversations in a meal in one of the spaces that you have created. I guess I have two just real quick last questions. One, with everything that you have going on, you have Brune. Are you thinking you're going to have more?
I think we're one and done.
One and done?
Yeah.
Is that a decision you made before Brune, or is this like, oh, Brune has changed us a bit. Let's maybe just stick to this one. My mom said, I got it right the first time. Let me just keep this as is. But yeah, for you guys, it's just. I feel
that we're one. You know, we feel like we have our hands full. We're very fulfilled with Brune, and you know, we're older, you know, it's just a thing where we're sort of like, wow, we made this beautiful, amazing child. Like, let's continue this journey as a family of three, you know? So that's how we feel.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Last question. You got things in the works. Hotel Charo.
Hotel Charo.
When is that opening?
Oh, no clue.
No clue.
Things move very slowly in the north of Spain. So yeah, Asturias is sort of right between Basque Country, and Galicia in the north of Spain, just right on the coast. And Yeah, things are slow. It's a village of about 1,200 people.
Okay. Why there? What happened?
How much time do you have? I mean, I'll try to be, how much time do we have? Are we
what time do you have? I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
for me is I wanted to get across the idea that you have this very big part of you that is boss, business oriented. You have to do these things, but also you have this family that you have to tend to. I think the idea that you are building a space for yourself across the pond is very impressive, and how you're going to balance that out is great knowledge for anyone to hear. The fact that you have all of these pieces that are successful, like that in itself is like a huge accomplishment, just to have one very successful restaurant. But that's not all you have. You have multiple. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to have a child. I'm going to be a mother. You know what? I'm going to renovate a hotel, not in Baltimore, but in Spain, in this small town in Spain. It feels like you and Matt are just like, nothing will stop us from just putting our creative energy out into the world. And it just seems like you're just having fun doing so. So hearing, because every other space that I'm aware of, that I talked about so far, everything's here in Baltimore. 3 of the spots are on the same street.
Right.
Yeah. Now you're like, let's go to Spain. You moved around a bunch. Was this city in Spain one of the towns you lived in?
The first place I ever went to Europe when I was 17 was Oviedo, which is the city of the north and one of the cities in Asturias.
Got it.
And I spent a whole summer there, camping on the beach and running around and going to punk shows. But I was living with a Spanish family.
Okay.
And Matthew and I later traveled around Basque Country, which is the same landscape essentially, but Asturias is less chic and less Frenchy, and I love Basque Country, but it just, the price tags are not, couldn't afford Basque Country. Asturias was just perfect for us. We in the pandemic we were looking for a second chapter, and of course we ended up having a baby. But this all happened a little bit before that.
Got it.
When we first bought a house in this village, it's called Las Tres in the north of Spain. In the pandemic, the first thing we started to do when we were craving travel, we were on Google Maps and we started to look around. We decided the north of Spain was the place. We wanted mountains, we wanted water. We really love Spain, and we were taking the little dude on Google Maps and dragging him into villages, and we were walking around and we were like, oh, there's a coffee shop. Let's go look. Oh, well, we can't go in. Damn. Okay. Oh, they didn't have, okay, let's go back. Oh, there's a hardware store. Let's go look at so we were walking villages, and I got this app called Idealista. And it's a real estate app. This is dangerous, folks. Don't download this if you're not ready. But you can look at houses in Portugal and Spain and in Italy.
There we
go.
So
we selected for Spain.
There we
and
go.
then I started looking, and then all of a sudden it was like, once you could fly to Europe you did take a couple COVID tests and whatever for his birthday one summer, we said, okay, let's go over there. And we were there for 4 days. And in that time we had looked at like 7 different places. We absolutely fell in love with this house in Las Tres, and ended up, some stuff, we couldn't get a COVID test on a Sunday. We had to extend our flight, and we couldn't get a flight until like many days later. In that time, we had made an offer on the house, got the house, got our Spanish identification numbers, opened up a Spanish bank account, made it all happen, left with keys.
Oh my God. Okay.
And then we went home and we were just like, wow, we have another life. Yeah. That was it. We had another life. We needed another chapter. We wanted
But why the need?
Politically in this country, things were rough. We had just worked ourselves like to the bone. Like I don't, the businesses are successful because the work was put in, and we have, we have incredible managers, and we built them up over time in such a way that we have an army now. But if you can imagine, like, when the pandemic sort of hit, it was so stressful to pivot everything. Some of our businesses had closed, like temporarily, of course, but it was just, we just kind of looked at the walls and said, what is this? Like, are we going to just continue this grind just like this? Or because we came from, when Matthew and I met, I was living in France and he was in England in a recording studio. We were always traveling. We were very like, broke, but incredibly happy. And we were living in Europe on and off. And so we just wanted to remember that part of ourselves. And we also wanted to have that in our lives again. And we wanted to have, when the things at work would get so stressful or in the politics in this country would get so disappointing, we would say, oh, but we have another life.
For sure.
We can go and we can fly there and we can go and we have another life. We can just dream of that beautiful window in Spain with the sea and mountain view. And we have that in this little humble fishing village. We have that. And then later the hotel happened because, we started to become friends with our neighbors and we were going there. And then later the church, the archdiocese of Asturias, they had this rectory across the street that was in ruins, beautiful structure, but the roof had caved in and it had sat empty, I think 30 or 40 years. This was an original building from the late 1700s, same years as the church was built. And it's such an iconic building in the city, in the village, and it was for sale and nobody wanted it. And then we just sort of, it's right by our house, so we walk by it every time we go to our house and think that's so sad that it's not, it's falling apart. It's such a, and then of course neighbors would tell us stories about when they were kids, and the nuns would give out free cider and all these things that happened there, and it was such a communal thing. And then of course we start dreaming. I love it. And then, so that's kind of where Hotel Charo is led, but it is right by the house.
I love that.
So,
like we're in it right now. So I need to know more. I need to know aesthetically, what is the vibe of this hotel? Like, what is it going to be for you?
So the way the walls are stone. They're very thick stone. And it's on about an acre of land. And there are beautiful fruit trees and we're thinking, 7 rooms, don't knock anything down, just leave it as is. And we're going to do as little as we can to make it an inn, basically, a little hotel. It's a historical, beautiful building. The floors are made out of chestnut wood. You just don't see that anymore. Really wide planks. Everything's irregular. So we're trying our best to do very little to the aesthetic of the place. Pretty much
the natural charm.
Just renovate it looking like as it is, but adding a few more bathrooms and things for the rooms. But yeah, I mean, it's a slow project. I have no clue the timeline. And even with the hotel, I think we'll probably just have it seasonal, maybe open it in March or April and then do it until maybe end of October, which makes it more reasonable with our schedule at work. Sure. And so I think and we can't be in Spain more than, not that I can take 3 months in a row, but in, I think, 180 days, I think we can only be there like 3 months at a time. So we have to sort of piece it up between Matthew and I when we can go and be on the ground. And then of course we'll probably, bring somebody from Baltimore or maybe a couple people to help us get it going and help to get some local people trained in a way that so we can incorporate a little bit of a food element, maybe a breakfast, maybe buy a pop-up chef for the season, maybe some yoga, like just some things like that. Yeah.
I'm coming. As soon as it opens up, I'm there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely not, it's on demo mode, not this summer. I doubt next, but I'm thinking probably 2026.
2026.
Very slow project. I hope too. We need it to be slow.
Yeah. Let it marinate. Let it happen as organically as it should. I think everyone who knows you and knows what you and Matt and those that you work with have created, we all know that it's going to be a success. And we are going to support however we possibly can. My family's coming out, so I don't have to tell you that part. But I was going to ask, my last question was, what's next? But I'm guessing this is the work in progress and the thing that you're going to be spending so much time building in Spain. But I don't want to just say that that's what you got going on next. Is there something that you do have in the works right now that we aren't aware of that you might want to share about?
No. I am fully deep in just working on my current businesses. I mean, that's a constant. It is a constant. That's a constant. And just being a mama. working on Hotel Charo, but slowly. And we will be there for 2 months in the summer
I love
with
that.
Brune and yeah, so she'll have her village life in the summers and yeah, we'll work a bit, but we'll mostly be swimming in the sea and spending time with family, eating seafood.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. I want that for my own family.
Well, you know.
My last question is this, and this is coming from someone who has written a few books on the things that I really care about. You spoke about being someone who loves to write. You still are writing. Do you see yourself writing a book?
I dream about it. Yeah, I have a few big ideas, but it goes into different. There's different realms, and I have different realms of ideas for books.
Realms
but yeah,
ideas.
I do think so. But I mean, I think like an easy one, like we need to catalog a lot of our cocktails.
There you go.
I mean, that's and that's not like a writing thing. I mean, there's a fair amount of writing, but even just like the cocktail du jour at WC Harlan has been different every day for 11 years, and we have every recipe, just stuff like Clavel. We've just gotten our third outstanding bar nomination from the James Beard Foundation.
Hey,
thank you. It's really nice to be acknowledged.
Of
We just love.
course.
We're like, we're on that list. Holy crap! It's amazing that the bar team is so energized and they're so deserving of it. But just things like that, I feel like the culinary stuff. I feel like I'd love to have some output there. But in terms of a book, like a memoir or like a sort of thing, I have dreamed of sort of writing out my journey. And I recently wrote an essay for Be More Art's book, The City of Artists.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice practice to sort of write about my trajectory and things like that. So yeah, I love to write. I love to edit. And so I do think at some point that would be in the cards. Yeah.
You have dreamed many things, and most of them I'm sure have already been realized. I can't see this, whatever you have the time to write whatever it is that you want to write, it will happen for sure.
Thank you.
And I will be one of the people trying to get you to sign the book early, because that line's going to be long. You know it. Whenever you decide to write a book and you have a book signing, the line's going to be insanely long. This city, I will say, owes you and Matthew, Carlos for sure, a lot. I keep harping back on the fact that you've created spaces that have brought people together. You are a connector. You are a real force in not just Baltimore, but worldwide at this point, honestly. I mean, there's so many people who know the spaces, who know you, and who care for you. And I really appreciate the fact that there's a creative individual like yourself, like Matthew, here in Baltimore to make the city that I was born in, raised in, a destination when people come and they go, I found these beautiful spaces, and I'm so glad that I did. So, Lane Harlan, thank you so much
Hilton,
for joining us. You can find Lane on Instagram at Lane Some Dove.
That's right.
Love that. All of the spaces we mentioned, Coral Wig, Angel's 8 Lemons, bar, I guess it's Bar Clavel, right?
Clavel. Yeah, we just call it Clavel, Faden Sonnen.
Faden Sonnen. What else? I'm missing something. Am I missing something?
WC Harlan.
WC Harlan. You can't miss WC Harlan. What's the WC stand for?
William Charles. It was named after my grandfather.
William Charles. Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Lane. I really appreciate it.